Hello, everybody, and hello to everyone watching on YouTube. This is our first episode of Meet the Paralympian. This is a series that the UBU has started. The very talented Adam Tasker has got some amazing Paralympians around Great Britain to talk to us at the UBU, and really for us to open our eyes and get a little bit of an insight into their stories, how they got to where they are, and so yeah, that's what's going on. Let me just mute myself because I can't listen to myself speaking. So, as we're aware, we're in a second lockdown at the moment. So a lot of people are going to be staying at home. It's quite a tough time. And so really we kind of want to bring this series to you to get engaged with some people in the UBU and the field. This is going to be going on in the next month. We're going to have Paralympians coming in to speak to us. We're aiming for around 2 Paralympic stars a week. And today we have Hanna Cockroft, who is a Bradford honorary graduate and a Paralympic superstar. And Zayn and Inshal will be asking the bunch of the questions. But just to introduce Hanna, hello Hanna.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Hurricane Hanna, as she is known, born in Halifax, so just up the road. She's a British wheelchair racer who specialises in sprint distances in the T34 classification. She holds the world record for the 100 metres, 200 metres, 400 metres, 800 metres, and 1,500 metres in her classification. Very talented. She also holds the Paralympic records in the 100 metres, 200 metres, 400 metres, and 800 metres. She competed in the 2012 London Games, winning 2 gold medals as well as 3 medals at Rio in 2016. And we're incredibly honoured to have her today. And so with us, we've got Zayn and Inshal. Zayn is our sports officer, Inshal is our community activities officer, and they're going to kick off with asking Hanna some questions. To everybody watching on YouTube, feel free to comment and ask as many questions as you like, and we'll feature them at the end. And to the people who are in the Zoom chat directly with us, we'll also have an opportunity for you to put on your microphone and your camera if you feel, and ask some virtually face to face. So over to you, Inshal and Zayn.
Hi everyone, so I'm Zain. I'm the Sports and Wellbeing Officer for the University of Bradford Union. First of all, I'd just like to start off by giving thanks to Hannah for being here and for volunteering to be part of this, and also Carol, who's obviously joined us too, and she's watching from the stream. So she started off the Disability History Working Group from the university perspective, and she kind of drafted it in, and then we got Adam in to help us out with meeting the Paralympians. So thanks to Karen and her team. And just to start off, Hannah, just give us a bit of a brief background about your journey so far.
So I guess like any story, you start at the start. I was born in 1992. I had 2 cardiac arrests directly after birth, which left me with multiple areas of brain damage. And the brain damage then led to nerve damage, which means that the messages basically can't get from my brain to my legs very well at all. So that then left me with deformed legs and deformed feet because I didn't learn to walk properly. I have really weak hips and a deformed spine because I can't walk properly. And I have problems with my fine motor skills as well. So really caused me quite a few problems, and doctors when I was born kind of told my parents to not expect much from me, no independence, no real life outside of what they could give me. And my parents were amazing people, they took that and they took it on board and said, well, you know what, without opportunity, she's never going to show what she can actually do. So I grew up like any other child. I didn't learn to walk until I was 3, and it's not walking like everyone else does it. It's very much my own style of walking, but it's still getting from A to B very slowly. And anything basically that my brothers did, my brothers are both able-bodied, anything they did, I did as well. Unless it came to sport was always something that I was pushed away from. I went to mainstream schools growing up, and I was always the only disabled student there. And I was never treated any differently. I was never bullied. I was never, I never struggled at school. But PE for me was sitting in a room doing my homework. It was sitting in the library reading a book. It was sitting on the side, keeping score. It was never, ever joining in. And that was until I was 12. 12 years old. 12 years old, the local wheelchair basketball team did a tour of all the secondary schools in my area, trying to promote the team and get some new players and get some new people involved. And that was a real eye-opener for me. That was where I found disability sport for the first time. And from there, I just did everything and anything I could get my hands on, really, until I found wheelchair racing when I was 15. And as they say, the rest was history, really. That was, how long's that been? 13 years ago. Oh, I'm old. That was 13 years ago that I found wheelchair racing. And yeah, hopefully this is not the end of the story. We're just having a little hiatus whilst the world sorts itself out.
Thanks for that brief introduction, Hannah. It's quite nice. I mean, it's obviously just talking through your journey. It's just, I'm sure it was fun times for you and some really good times that you've had. So we'll move on to the questions now. Obviously, as you represented the Team GB in a lot of competitions, so how did you feel to represent Team GB in your wheelchair racing?
It's always a massive honour to represent your country. I mean, it's a thing that I think everyone dreams of doing at some point in their lives, and I've obviously been lucky enough to do it quite a few times. First time I represented Great Britain was at the World Championships in 2011. They were out in New Zealand, and I was 19 years old, so it was the first time I was really travelling without my family and without my parents, and travelling with all my friends. It was just like a big holiday. It felt amazing. And obviously, like, it was my first kit, so it was just a massive, massive honour. I was so excited. You know, I remember getting it all, and you know, it's not just the vest. You just get like suitcases full of clothing, all with a Great Britain flag on, and it's amazing. And I think, you know, every time that kit arrives on my doorstep, you know, what am I now? I've done, oh man, I've got to think. I think I've done 9 championships for the country, and every single time that kit lands on my doorstep, you just get just as excited as you did the first time. It's still amazing. And obviously my first Paralympics were home games too. And nothing quite beats representing Great Britain whilst you're in Great Britain. No one gives you support like Great Britain do. And I think that's a massive, it makes us proud, you know, when people we compete against come to our country and they like competing here. It makes the athletes proud, because, you know, we go all over the world and we don't always get a crowd. I'm not going to lie. You know, we had our World Championships in Doha a couple of years ago, and literally, I'm not joking, there must have been like 3 people in the crowd. But when we come to Britain, you are guaranteed that every seat is going to be filled, that people are going to get excited, that we're going to be in papers, we're going to get the coverage. And I think that's one of the things that makes me most proud. When I pull on that kit, I know that Britain actually supports its para athletes, which is something that most countries can't really say.
Definitely, and there's nothing like playing on home soil, and we're right behind you in that, Hannah. I'm just going to pass on to Inshal, who's going to ask a couple of questions too.
Hi, Hanna.
Hi.
Hello again. I was thinking to ask your proudest moment as an athlete, but I guess you've already mentioned that playing for home soil is something that you consider as your proudest moment. But in your answer, you did mention that you had to travel to Doha and different places. So can I take this opportunity to ask how do you feel traveling around different places as an athlete? Do you get that sort of attention as you're a professional athlete, or how is the overall experience for you when you travel abroad? Not just in the UK, but when you travel abroad, obviously.
Yeah, it's really changeable depending on where we go to be honest. You know, whether the country support para sports to begin with, whether it gets much coverage, it really depends. So places like Dubai and Doha, where I've been, like I said, we just don't get a crowd, and there is no reaction. You know, nobody knows who you are. No one comes to watch. There's no TV coverage. There's nothing. There's literally no sign that the event's even going on, and that sometimes can be quite disheartening, actually. You know, this is one of the biggest stages that we train and work so hard to get onto, and if that's your first championships, that's your first taste of it. it's a bit of a letdown, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. But then, you know, some places we go to, like I said, my first World Champs was in New Zealand, and we filled the stadium out every single day. It was only a small stadium, but still it felt amazing to me. And you know, we had our World Championships in France, in Lyon, after London 2012. And again, we filled it out every day. You know, we had people sitting on the grass fields outside of it wanting to watch what we were doing. So things like that really make it worth it. You know, you don't know who's going to watch you that day, and you're going to change their life. So that's the exciting thing. And we just love the support. You know, it's strange because even in Britain, the support sometimes isn't there. People will pay hundreds of pounds for a ticket to watch the World Championships, but actually the weekend before, the whole World Championship team will have been competing somewhere in Britain that you could have entered for free. And I really think it's something as a country that we can improve on. You know, we need to promote parasport. We need to get people involved. We need to get it out there because people like watching it. People enjoy it. And I think the more we push it out there, the more we show people that, you know, it's not just the major championships. The question I always get asked is like, oh, so, you know, you compete at the Paralympics every 4 years, but what do you do the rest of the time? I train really hard, and we have a world champs or some kind of major champs every single year. So aside from this one, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it really, really depends on where we are in the world. But everywhere can improve, and it's just pushing for that.
I can only imagine, Hanna. I can imagine the feeling, to be honest. Just to continue on that, as I said, I was having Greg's cheese and onion pasty before this meeting, and that was my personal best to finish that patty in 22 seconds.
I'm very proud of you. That is impressive.
and gives me a sense of accomplishment, which brings to my next question. What was the first thing you thought when you made all these amazing world records, as Connor mentioned, in 200, 400, 600, even 1,000-meter race? So what was the reaction to yourself? Not anyone else, but just to yourself. What did you think?
I've broken over 40 world records in my career now, over the 5 different distances. So honestly, like, the feeling now is very different to the first time that I did it. I remember my first world record, and it was in Liverpool, actually. I broke the 400-meter world record for the first time ever. I was 17, and I think I found out I broke the world record about 3 hours after I'd actually broken it. I had no idea. I did the race, came off. You know, normally when we're racing in Britain, there's so many races to get through. You just get on, get off. Do you warm down? Do you warm up? Get back on. You just keep going. And yeah, I remember Dave Weir, quite a famous wheelchair racer, came over with this huge bouquet of roses, and he was like, "Oh, congratulations!" And I was like, "For what?" And he was like, "Oh, you just broke a world record, your first world record, and you've got no idea." So that was pretty exciting when I found out. But now, you know, it's more. I don't remember the last time I crossed the line happy with what I did. I don't remember the last time I crossed the line not thinking, oh, I could have done this better. I did this little part of the race wrong. I could go faster if I did this. I think, you know, that's the thing that keeps you going. That's how you keep breaking records. You are always looking for the fault. The minute you think that you've found perfection is probably the time that you need to bow out and get out the sport, because you're not going to work as hard anymore. But yeah, I think a lot of it is it's a feeling of relief that your training's paying off and you're doing the right things. But also, yeah, just sometimes a feeling of frustration that you didn't get it perfect. You did something wrong. But sometimes it's nice, you know, to know that there's still another way to get faster. That's what I'm always looking for. Somehow, how am I going to get faster?
That's really good advice, Hanna. I think this is an advice for everyone to just keep on trying and make sure that you put in that extra effort. Yeah, but he's a terrible cricketer, so I don't know why is he saying that. But I'll pass it on to Zen to ask the next question, Hanna.
So Hanna, as you Connor earlier mentioned, you're a T34 wheelchair racer. So I think our viewers would like to know, like, how does the classification system work for wheelchair racing?
Okay, yeah. So the classification system, it's basically you get given a letter and a number that equates you to people who are very similar to you. So the T stands for track. The other side of it is F stands for field. And then I'm a 34, which is for athletes with brain damage and cerebral palsy, meaning that I'll race against all girls that have brain damage or cerebral palsy. In wheelchair racing, there are, 1 minute, I need to count, 6 classifications. So T33 and T34 are, obviously, as I said, I'm a 34, so 33 would be someone slightly more severe than me with brain damage or cerebral palsy. And then the T50 classes are for athletes with spinal damage. So T51 being the most impaired and T54 being the least impaired. But there are 58 classifications in athletics. So it's a very, very complex system. And I think everyone watching will have seen all the dramas around it in the past, in the papers and in the media. And it's a hard system to kind of get your head around. You've just got to trust it. It's such an important part of our sport to make sure that it's equal and it's fair. And it's hard because someone's always going to be the top end of each class and someone's always going to be, scraping in at the bottom end. No disability is the same, and that's what makes disability so unique and so amazing. Everybody is slightly different. So it is hard to put you in a little box and say, well, you're the same as them, because we're never going to be the same. But yeah, ultimately, the overall idea of it is that it's fair and it's equal because you are racing against people who have a similar impairment. Because if you put me on the start line against a spinal injured athlete, then I probably wouldn't win, which kills me to say. But yeah, they would naturally be stronger than me because they wouldn't have the muscle delay. I have this really funny picture in London 2012. I have this picture and we're all sat on the start line and the gun has evidently just gone because everyone's, like just over the start line, like maybe a chair length into the race, and I'm still sat on the start line. That's how ridiculously slow my reaction time is. It's something we've really had to work on whilst I've been in this sport. But yeah, ultimately that delay, if you put me against someone with a different disability, it would just leave me hanging.
Kind of goes to show that obviously this type of challenges you face, and I probably didn't know about this before, and I'm sure the viewers probably didn't either. But it just gives you a bit of a background on what you have to go through, which brings you to my next question. Like, what kind of challenges did you face in the sport because of the impairment that we've got?
Yeah, I think it's you see us on the TV and you don't really think about what the person's disability might be. You just see a wheelchair or a prosthetic leg, and sometimes it's not as simple as the actual aid that you see the person using. Disability goes a lot deeper than just one name for something. So I think for me, honestly, my biggest barrier in the sport has been classification. Not because I've ever struggled with it. I've always been given the name and number of a T34. That's always been my class. When I started racing in 2007, the T34 class wasn't actually a class, so it got taken out of the games in Sydney 2000 because there weren't enough competitors, and then reintroduced for London 2012. So when I started racing in 2007, it wasn't actually a class. So I was given a dual classification that meant that I could still race. So I was a T34, but to race, I had to race against the T53 women. And that has caused so much controversy in my career. It's been horrendous. I think a big thing for me is if you see me just walking around or in my wheelchair or whatever I'm doing, I do present as a spinal damaged athlete because of the way my brain damage has caused my back to kind of malform. My back's actually perfectly straight. My muscles around it just aren't strong enough to hold it up. So people like to judge a book by its cover. And that meant that a lot of people over time have kind of commented and said, oh, you're in the wrong class. You're only winning because you're in the wrong class. You're not racing against the right girls. And that's been, that's kind of hung over me for a long, long time. I've really struggled with those comments. And it's only been in the last few years that I've kind of got to a point where I'm like, oh, you know what? I've been through the classification system 5 times. I have to do it again next year to shut these people up. And it's still going. if people want to see my brain scans, that's cool. You can look at them. They're not that well, they actually are quite interesting. But you want to look at my back scan, it's the same as anyone else's. It's totally normal. So it's hard, you know. It's hard to get comments about something that you have no control over, and especially for me, like I'm a person who, okay, I don't have a disability that I can hide. You know, I don't have a false leg that I can just pull my trousers down over and pretend is a normal leg. You're always going to notice I am a bit different, but I try not to draw attention to it. I try to find my own ways to do everything that makes me look, hopefully, I think, very able. And then the problem with that is when you do act and try and be as independent as possible, people then always want to make comments. So, yeah, I think that's been my biggest barrier and my biggest fight in sport, really. And it's not nice, but I'm 28 now, so I've gotten over it a little bit. Just get on with it. You know, people are always going to be jealous if you're the one winning and they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it must be disheartening to hear those comments, especially from people who don't know anything about it, and then they're passing comments. And especially when you work so hard to get where you are right now, still hear people, you know, making those comments. It must be disheartening. So how do you deal with that sort of thing? Do you kind of like take it in your stride?
Yeah, I think it used to really get to me. You know, it used to just be horrendous. And I think I've just learned now that everyone thinks they're a professional. Like, you see something. I'm the same, like, I don't know, you watch Bake Off and you go, look at them doing their icing all wrong. Like, I'd do it any differently. But you think you're a professional when you're watching something. Everyone does it. And it's fine, you know, you realise it when you're growing up. But yeah, everyone thinks they're a professional on disability. And the problem is, I don't even fully understand my disability, so no one else is going to. And I think I just had to learn that for myself. You know, I had to learn that people are always going to try and pull you down if you're at the top. And they're always going to try and find a reason why you're at the top and they're not. And that you just have to believe in yourself. You know, I know that I haven't got anything to hide. I haven't done anything wrong. I've just worked really hard my whole life to get where I'm at. And I love my sport. You know, if they want to change my class, that's cool, that's fine. I'd still keep racing because ultimately I don't do what I do to win gold medals. I do what I do because I love it. I love going fast. I love the freedom. I love being on the track, and I'm not going to give that up for anybody's comments. So I think I just had to realize that, and now I just get on with it.
I think that's the advice I'm going to take from you. I mean, earlier, Inshal's comment about me a failed cricketer, I think I'm just going to keep going and let the hate.
He thinks he's a professional, obviously. Just ask him if he can do any better.
Yeah, I've seen him play cricket, and let's just say it's not his part of the...
My question to you, Hanna, is going to be, so as you mentioned that a lot of people did passed on comments to you, and there's a lot of did some criticism on your hard work, and you went while you were training for all these different events. But then did the same people say anything when you broke all those 41 world records and you came back to the country, and then did they had something to say after that? Or how was it? How was the transition from criticizing and commenting on your hard work, and then now that you're actually famous and you're actually you actually broke 41 world records? And did they have to say anything differently from there, or the people just shy away from, oh, let's not see Hanna?
Yeah, they normally shut up pretty quick when you show them what you can do. I mean, there's always new heads popping up everywhere, but you know what? Who listens to a nameless, faceless little emoji on social media? There's no point. Like, you can sit for days looking at comments about yourself, but ultimately you just got to remember that these people don't know you as a person, so they definitely don't know your story, and they definitely don't know you and your life. So yeah, they shut up pretty quick when you don't let it bother you.
I think that's a pro advice millennials should take, because social media is considered to be as the Bible these days, and people just whatever people say on social media, they take it to heart. But what I wanted to ask you next is, and obviously you went on to these different Paralympian events and broke all the records, but then you had to come back to your normal life at one point, and you had this in your mind that yes, holiday is over, I need to go back and settle back into my normal life. So did you have to, how was the transition, or did you had any specific thoughts in mind that you're going to use that same mentality that you used to win those world records over to apply those in your normal life and excel in both the areas? Or how was the transition?
So I think London 2012 is where my life really changed. You know, that's when people started to know my name. That's when people really paid attention to what I did. And honestly, my life it really did. It changed overnight. You know, I went from this 20-year-old girl in Halifax that no one had ever heard of to suddenly being on every newspaper cover and a magazine and TV show. It was amazing. I came out of London 2012 and I just milked it for months. I loved it. I went everywhere and did everything. Obviously, got my MBE at Buckingham Palace. I went to the Pride Britain Awards. I went to Sports Personality of the Year for the first time. I was in magazines. Honestly, I just lived the life. It was amazing. And yeah, it was hard. I really got sucked into that. And my coach at the time, Peter Erickson, he was an amazing guy, and he noticed it was happening. And he let me have kind of 8 weeks of it. He was like, yeah, go on, you've worked for it, you deserve it, go and enjoy it. And then he was like, right, that's it. You're going back into training now. Like, anything you want to do from this point forward, you have to fit around your training, remember how hard training is, how tired you get. You know, if you don't train, you're not ever going to get this again. So you can't just win a medal and live off it forever. You've got to keep working. So yeah, he taught me some lessons there and really pulled me back down to earth. I think I'm quite a driven person anyway. Like, I like being busy. I like to be doing everything. I'm not very good at just sitting and binge watching TV or just staying in bed all day. I don't really do that. So after 2012, I obviously went to the World Championships, and then I went to university. So I went to Coventry Uni and I studied journalism. So that filled a little bit of my time. And then came out, obviously, and went to Rio. And I think just really just found a balance. You know, I found a balance between my training and then all the other cool stuff that you get offered to do. But yeah, for me, it's just been about keeping that balance. You know, at times it's really tipped one way or the other. 2018, I had a terrible year where I got offered a presenting role on BBC Countryfile, and it was my dream job. It's what I've always wanted to do, so I obviously took it. And I just had a terrible racing year. I lost my world record in 100 meters. I lost the gold for the first time ever at my international championships that year, at the European Championships, simply because my training was just not of the standard I would usually have it at. And the other girls, you know, saw it as an opportunity to catch me, and they did. And I think that was the wake-up call I needed. You know, I had this amazing year, you know, herding cattle across the Outer Hebrides and doing dolphin observation in Swansea, and I was a dairy farmer for a day. I had a cow poo on my head. It was like, it doesn't sound like the dream, but it was great. I loved it. And I'm glad I did it, because it was a real wake-up call that, you know what, all these other opportunities, I can take them at any time. I'm only 28. I'm not ancient, even though people make out I am. So athletics is not going to last forever. Take it for what it is now. You know, be the most successful athlete that you can right now, put the work in, and all these other things, they will still be there. You know, Countryfile will still be there when I finish racing. All these nice things will still be there. And it made me really appreciate that, you know, as much as people say, you know, you wouldn't have to train and you'd still win. That year made me realise that I have to train harder than I've ever trained before to still win, and that the competition is catching me quickly, and that every race I do is getting harder and harder to stay at the front of. And I probably don't have that much longer in the sport. You know, I want to go to Tokyo, and then I'd like to go to the next games after that in Paris in 2024. But I mean, I'll be 32 then. And then I actually have to get a real job, probably, which scares me. So that's when I can do all the little bits that you know, I'm being offered along the way. But yeah, it's about finding the balance, and it's really, really hard. So I just, every now and then I make a mistake and I take too much on, or I choose the wrong thing to prioritize. But that's what life is, you know, it's learning every day that we can't do everything. And at the same time, you've got to do what you enjoy. So, yeah, still learning, but I don't think my life ever went back to normal.
So Hannah, sorry to jump in and challenge Zane, but we've got a question coming in about, because you mentioned about your training, and obviously that's when you're not competing, you're training. And obviously with COVID and stuff at the moment, how has that affected the way you train and stay on top of your game?
Training this year has been completely different to anything I've ever done before. Obviously, tracks have been closed, gyms have been closed. So when it was announced in March that the games were being postponed, I was the one in the house that cried. I was gutted. We'd just got back from 2 months in Australia, training out there with my coach. I was flying, like I was so fit and I was so ready to go. And obviously then we all got told to stay in our houses. So my training didn't actually amazingly change that much. Everything that we normally do on the track, I adapted to either do on the road, because the roads were so quiet. Everyone was staying in their houses. There were no cars. So I live with my boyfriend, who's also a wheelchair racer. So we'd go out and train on the roads, or we'd train on something called a roller. It's a bit like a bike roller, or a bit like a treadmill for the race chair that we've got in our spare bedroom. So did all our sessions on that. And then throughout the first lockdown, we built a gym in our garage. So I was training out there. And actually it seemed to do me some good. I think, you know, normally my training is not just at home. You know, I live in Chester now, but I train in Liverpool. My coach is based in Loughborough, so I'm there once or twice a week. But I'm also, you know, going around competing. So most of our competitions are down in London. And then you add appearances to that as well that are all over the country. I literally live in my car. So this year has been amazing for me just to stay at home and learn what rest and recovery is, which, you know, athletes bang on about it all the time. Oh, I need to recover. But this year I've really learned that actually it's quite important. I'm normally the one like, I don't need to sleep when I'm done. I'll just keep going. So yeah, just trained like that. And then broke 4 world records in 4 hours in one of my competitions. We only had 3 races this season. So in my last race of the 3, I broke 4 world records in 4 hours. So it worked. So I've just gone back to that. I'm just back on the roller, back in the garage. Not so much on the roads now. That's a bit more difficult because the nights are obviously darker, the weather's a little bit worse. And people are not staying in as much, to be honest. So the roads are not as safe to go out on. So yeah, it's been different. I really, really miss the track. I mostly miss just training with people, even though I'm lucky to have Nathan to train with. He's a lot faster than me. He's a T54 boy, so I've got no chance of ever sitting with him. So I miss the girls that I train with. You know, I miss going out and doing that, but it means it'll all feel like a treat next year instead of a task. And if we can get through this and have some positive results, then imagine what I can do when I can actually touch a track.
Well, so what will be next for you then? When you say, you know, when COVID dies down, hopefully, and, you know, we're able to get back to training, what's in the sights for then? So
hopefully, depending on, you know, when we're allowed to travel again, I mean, this will be my first January in 8 years that I won't be spending in Australia, so that's going to hurt. Hoping that later on in the year, so kind of March time, we'll be able to get some warm weather training in, whether it be in Spain or Portugal or Dubai. I'm not sure yet. We're waiting for that decision to be made. Normally in May, we compete out in Switzerland. It's a massive competition there that pretty much every wheelchair racer in the world goes to. So this is the first year in about 10 years that I haven't been. So I've really missed that this year because it got cancelled. So hopefully that'll be on next year. And then obviously, hopefully, Tokyo 2020 is the plan. But, well, 2021, isn't it? I forget what year it is. I'm not counting this year.
Do we get tickets for that, Hannah? We'd love to come to that.
You get your tickets, but you'll have to get yourself there.
I'll get there. I just need the tickets to turn up there. Imagine the whole of Bradford Union just coming to support you.
Oh, cool.
That'd be
Yeah,
lovely, boy.
cool. Yeah, add them on it.
We'll
Come
have to
on,
get our
bring a team.
UBU
Come on.
minibus back, and then we'll make a trip over.
I'll bring the medals to see you if I win any.
I'm sure you will. And one of the attributes displayed while you were answering one of Connor's question about COVID was the attitude of where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that is something we should all take back from this and make sure that we implement in our lives. Because for me, since COVID, I've got the perfect excuse of not going to the gym. so I think we need to reflect some of this on our lives, which brings to my next question. And I remember you mentioning about MBE and going to the Buckingham Palace to get it. I believe. I think for me, the closest I've been to Buckingham Palace is outside on the road. So how was that feeling when you actually went to the Buckingham Palace? And I'm assuming someone from the royal family, do they do the awards, or how do they do it? I absolutely no idea. Sorry.
Yeah, so the nominees, all the people that get the awards, or I don't even know the honours. I don't know what you want to call them. But everyone who gets named, obviously there's hundreds of people, so we all get given a day. If you turn up on your day, yeah, you get to drive your car in. So we drove my little Kia into the actual Buckingham Palace grounds. And yeah, you go in, and I got my MBE off Prince Charles. So you basically just queue up and go to the front, shake whoever the royal family member is, you shake their hand, they have a little chat with you, you get your little ribbon, and off you pop. But yeah, it was a really humbling day, but I really questioned whether it was a strange day for me. Obviously got my MBE for services to sport, so services to athletics, and my performance at London 2012, which was amazing. But I queued up, and I was stood in the queue next to Bombardier Ben Parkinson. Ben lost his legs and got severe brain damage, being blown up in, at war. Literally serving our country, and he was getting an MBE. And I kind of stood there and I thought, either he deserves some kind of knighthood or something way, way above me, or I do not deserve to be here, because ultimately I've just gone out and pushed around the track in a circle and had the time of my life, whilst this guy has literally put his life on the line to keep us safe. And it was a very, he was really excited to meet me, and I was thinking, why? I haven't done anything amazing at all. I've just had fun. So it's a really humbling day. I was very Yorkshire about it. I didn't really make a fuss. My mum, we went in, and at the end, all these people were like, oh, we're going to the Ritz to celebrate. And I was like, oh man, we haven't booked anything. We hadn't even thought about that. So we went to the Hard Rock Cafe, and they gave me a badge. So there you go. That's how I celebrated it.
Sounds like just the perfect plan, Hannah. So someone in the chat box is trying to ask, how did you find your coach? And before you answer that, if anyone who wants to ask any question who's on the Zoom call or watching live on YouTube, you can just leave your question in the comments, and we'll ask Hannah those questions. So I'll just let you answer this.
Yes. So how did I find my coach? So my first ever coach was Dr. Ian Thompson, who is Baroness, I think she's Baroness Dame. I'm not sure which one she is anymore. Tanny Ray Thompson's husband. So I met Tanny and Ian. They were the first people that put me in a race chair. I went to a common try day for parasports that I got invited to by British Athletics. Ian was there with the race chairs. I got in, fell in love, and the week after, I was at their house getting measured up for a chair and doing my first training session and getting involved with the sport. So Ian was my first coach for the first kind of 2 years of my career. Then I moved on to a guy called Peter Erickson, who was already mentioned. Peter was actually the head coach of the para athletics team. And he approached me, you know, obviously Ian lives in Middlesbrough, so a nice kind of 2.5 hour drive from Halifax that my dad was struggling to do every week. Whereas Peter, I was seeing at team camps and team days. So Peter offered to take over my coaching, and I was with Peter for 4 years, going into London 2012 and just after. And then unfortunately, Peter went back to Canada, where he's from, to be with his family. So he brought in Jenny Banks, who's my current coach. He brought Jenny over from Australia, gave her a job while he still had the power to do so. And yeah, I just got assigned to her really, or she got assigned to me, I guess. And we've been together ever since. So she's employed by British Athletics to coach me. And yeah, I didn't really find the coach. The coach was just given to me. She's one of the best in the world though, so I'm pretty lucky that I get that expertise behind me. Had they not brought Jenny over, I would have obviously gone and found someone in Britain. Unfortunately, there's very few wheelchair racing clubs in Britain. So in the north, you have the choice of 3 clubs. One in Leeds, a guy called Paul Mosley coaches. Paul's brilliant. I trained with Paul every Thursday night going into London 2012 and after it. He is an amazing coach, and I really would have stuck with him if I'd gone with anyone. But you know, he's great with the development guys, and he's great at getting the kids involved. So if anyone wants to start wheelchair racing, he's the guy. And then there's also a club in Liverpool that I currently train with once a week, just because that's where the most races are, and that's where my boyfriend trains. And there's a club in Stockport as well. But you know, it shows how limited the choice of coaches in the UK is. So yeah, kind of hope that answers the question. But yeah, I didn't choose my coach. She chose me, or someone chose me.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Hanna. And thank you, Anshul and Zain, for your wonderful rare questions. It's really good. We've got a couple of lovely comments in the YouTube. We've got Samir, who says, so excited, and Zain, another Zain, she's amazing. So that's very nice comments.
Oh, thanks.
So to the people watching on YouTube, thank you very much. But we've also got a number of people directly in our Zoom call at the moment. So I'm reaching out to you, people in the Zoom chat. Turn on your microphones and see if you've got any questions. Feel free to ask them. This is your opportunity.
Within reason.
You're face to face with Hanna Cockroft. If you've got any questions, please raise them. Come on, I know this.
Shall I come in? Can I come in? Is that all right?
Of course.
Thank you.
Hi, Hanna. Thank you for that. It was really great to hear you talking about your experiences. I just wanted to say we've got lots of physio students at the university, and I just wondered if you'd talk a little bit about sort of how you've gone through injuries and how physio might have contributed to your recoveries.
Yeah, sure. So obviously I've had a physio since I was a baby. I had an NHS physio until I was 18. So physios were the ones that got me on my feet initially. I've been in, you know, if you can name a device that attaches to your legs, I've been in it. I've had K-walkers, standing frames, splints, twisters, everything. And it was never really something I enjoyed, if I'm totally honest, but I couldn't be more thankful now for physios because I know my life would be a lot worse off. I've met people who didn't do their physio exercises when they were little. So as much as I hated doing them when I was small, I'm definitely thankful that my parents kind of pushed me to do that now because it's made my life a lot easier. Now, obviously, like you said, I rely on physios more for injury prevention. Touch wood, I've never actually had a serious injury in my career at all. I popped a rib in about, I don't know what it was, like 2011. I was bench pressing 80 kilograms and managed to, kind of fracture a rib. So that was interesting. I just couldn't breathe very well, so it was fine aside from that. Now a lot of what they do now is just making sure that I'm kind of comfortable and keeping moving. So it's more about injury prevention for me. So a lot of stretching that even at 28, I try and get away with not doing. A lot of So I use a Normatec for my legs. So it's a lot of machine work. So Normatec for my legs, which kind of blows air into these like stocking things. It sounds really classy. And then lets it out in a pattern that increases your blood flow, but it stops my leg pain being quite as severe as it sometimes can be. What else do I use? I use a Theragun, which is like you'll see them all over the internet, like these guns that like pummel you. And obviously we haven't really been able to see our physios this year at all. I'm seeing mine tomorrow for the second time this year. I'm buzzing, I can't wait. But yeah, so bought one of them in lockdown, and that was just to keep my muscles going. Yeah, mostly what they kind of watch over me for is, they come and do a lot of technique work with me. Because of my disability, I'm quite uneven in the chair. So let me get this right. My right side tires a lot quicker because it does a lot more work than my left. And I've hit the rims very differently. So we've worked really hard over the years with my physios to try and even me up. So when I get tired, my hip drops a lot in the chair, and then that throws my whole push technique off, which makes me less powerful. So with the physios, we've built different seating positions in the race chair. We've tried different gloves. A massive thing for me this year has been having the time to learn to push in a new pair of gloves, which I think was one of the biggest differences that made me break the world records this season. The fact that I actually had the time to put into learning that new skill. The gloves now that I'm using are plastic molded around my hand. So they force my hand to hit symmetrically, whereas the old gloves I had were made of leather. So if I mishit, it would just form a new kind of wear spot on the leather, and I could always push there. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, so things like that. Making sure I'm pushing symmetrically in the chair, making sure I recover well. Obviously in the race chair, we're all kind of screwed up and like bunched over yourself. So it's always about bringing everything back and making sure that your posture's good when you're in your day chair. Honestly, they just look after everything for us, and it's amazing the kind of little things that they spot that as a person you just would never spot yourself. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's good for people to realise that even if somebody doesn't have an injury, there's an awful lot that they can contribute to help their performance.
Yeah, massively. Physios are definitely not just there for injury. Like I said, injury prevention is the biggest part of it, because we don't want to ever get injured. So, they're always trying to put things in place to stop that happening initially. Unfortunately, if it happens, then they obviously have to put a lot of time and effort into getting you fixed again. But as a disabled person, you always need that support, even if you're not an athlete, to manage pain, to try and make things just a little bit easier for yourself. There's so many things that physios can do outside of just treating injuries.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks very much, Hanna. Thank you, Pam. Just got a question on YouTube. So that one has asked, do you follow any diet plan, and what are your recommendations?
Diet. Well, I don't eat cheese and onion pasties from Greg's, so that's not in my diet plan.
Hannah's calling you out.
I don't really follow a plan per se. I try to eat little and often just to keep energy levels up. I try to eat more protein, so high protein, low carb. Ultimately, I just try to eat healthily. If I want a pizza, I'm not going to ban myself from having a pizza unless it's like the night before a race, in which I obviously wouldn't do it. But ultimately, at this time of year especially, if I want something, I'll just eat it. But normally, like, you have a McDonald's and then you're like, oh, didn't really enjoy that, so I'll just go back to eating normally. Before a race, I kind of try and stick to the same kind of things around race time. So meals that I know will sit well with me. I love spaghetti bolognese, so that's a big thing that I always eat. Or, the classic old chicken and rice. Just something that's going to fill you and something that's going to help your body recover quicker. I always have a milkshake or a glass of milk after every training session and every race that I do. because milk has more protein in it than a protein shake and is obviously better for you and better for your teeth because there's more sugar in a protein shake than anything. So if that's, I guess that's my big one. I always drink milk because it helps your muscles recover quicker. And I always eat strawberry laces before a race. There you go. So not a diet plan at all.
Is it
but
true?
Normally,
Strawberry laces every time before you race?
Strawberry laces.
That's amazing.
I'll be sat in the call room just eating strawberry laces.
This is very promising.
I think more just to distract myself. But then I always get like, oh, can I have one? And I'm like, no, should have brought your own.
It's of mine. Last opportunity if to people in the Zoom chat. We're coming close to the end. So if you've got any bearing questions, here's your opportunity.
I can see one. What advice would you give to a disabled person wanting to get into sport? Shall I answer that one?
That'd be brilliant.
So I think first off, my advice would be research what's in your local area. I know I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a website. I think it's just called Parasport website, and it's run by Paralympic UB, and it's literally got a list of every sport in your local area, every team to do with parasport. So you can kind of log on there. If it's, I don't know, wheelchair football that you want to try, then it'll list the clubs that you can go along and, you know, how you can contact them, things like that. So check out that website. Otherwise, I just say, like, take every opportunity. You know, don't turn something down, because if you don't enjoy it, if you don't love it, you'll learn from it. That's what I say. You know, I didn't just jump into wheelchair racing. I tried wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair tennis, seated discus, all before I found wheelchair racing. So, you know, and I didn't love them all, but they all led me to the thing that I do love. So, you know, don't be afraid to try things, because you'll always learn something from them. So take every opportunity, use your contacts. You know, I'm happy, you know, if people want to find a club and just are struggling, just tweet me, just message a Paralympian. They always want to help. You know, our job, ultimately, we love winning medals, but ultimately we want every child to do the sport that they want to do. So many of us as Paralympians have been turned away from sport to begin with, and we hate to think that any child in 2020 is still being put in that position. So we'll do anything we can to help, and anything we can to stop that being an issue, and try and point you in the right direction if we can. And yeah, I think just encourage people to get creative. You know, like I said, at school, I never got involved, and that's because the school weren't creative. You know, there is no difference between everyone else standing up and throwing a discus and me sitting down. And it took 13 years for my school to learn that. So make it adaptive, you know, make it inclusive, have fun with it. You know, a disabled person will always open their mouth and tell you if there's a problem. So listen to them, let them be their own voice, and ultimately just enjoy everything. Just say yes, and you never know where it'll take you.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Dawn in the chat just said Bradford Disability Sport and Leisure is a great place to get involved with disability sports in Bradford as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Hannah. That was really great. But again, this would not have been possible without Adam Tasker, who's in the chat. Thank you very much, Adam. Is there any words you'd like to say?
Well, I've kept quiet because it's we're a student-led organisation here in UBU. I want you guys to take the lead. But thank you so much for coming and getting involved. I think we do quite a lot of really good stuff here in Bradford in terms of disability sport, from mixed ability to Special Olympics, all the way through to sort of competitive stuff. And it's not just the university and the student unions, loads of different community groups. The one thing is, I think we all work together really well. And it's due to lots of hard work from lots of different people. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
No problem at all. I hope everyone tunes in. There's lots of other guests coming throughout the month. They're all my pals, so I'm sure they'll have plenty of good stories to tell you. Obviously, none of them are as fun as me, because they're not me. But but yeah, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and it's nice to be back. Nice to be back with Bradford.
Thank you, Hannah. That was amazing. The amount of stuff I've learned from this. I think I'll be a pro cricketer in a couple of years. Let's hope so.
Well, There you go. Stay away from the cheese and onion thingies.
Porridge shell. Yeah, thank you very much. So to everybody watching, this is going to be a recurring series for the next 3 weeks. Adam, is that right? 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Yeah.
So tomorrow we'll be joined with Sophie Christiansen, CBE, who's a British dressage rider. She's competed in 4 Paralympic Games, 8-time Paralympic champion, won multiple world and European titles, and placed 5th in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. So we will be chatting with her tomorrow. But yeah, Hanna, it's been excellent having you today to chat with us. And I'm sure we've all learned something very what's the word? Combatively. There we go. So yeah, it was really great. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And to everybody watching, stay tuned for our future ones in the next couple of weeks. See you later.
Right.
Thank you.